100%. The best salespeople don't sell, they have people buy from them because they want to. And it really is a pull effect. And really, smart questioning is the engine and the fuel that creates the transformative process in the minds of prospective customers as to whether they would want to buy or not. We're not saying buy this car or I'll break your head. We're saying, it is a conclusion and it's mutually agreed and it's mutually beneficial. In many ways, my definition of sales is giving people good reasons to buy today. It's not about buying today. It's about motivating them to see the value in buying today. And that's where a lot of salespeople get it wrong and they leave residue and it becomes unsustainable. And there's buyer's remorse and people think backwards and wonder why they made a decision. So look, sales, urgency, when done incorrectly, they mean pressure. When done correctly, people buy from a desire that comes from within themselves. And that is really the tightrope and the fine line that we want to achieve in achieving sales mastery.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Happy Productive Podcast. I have to tell you guys, I'm chomping at the bit because my guest today, I want to just jump right into all the juicy bits because you're going to absolutely love this show. Geoffrey Reid. Geoffrey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, you guys, Geoffrey, you're going to love him so much. He transitioned from a public policy analyst, I'm sorry, Geoffrey, but that doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun, to a globally recognized sales leader. And he entered sales in the year 2000 with no prior experience. He rapidly excelled, becoming North America's top new business revenue generator in his first full year of sales. I'm tongue-tied, you guys. I'm so excited about this. So now Geoffrey also focuses on sharing his extensive sales knowledge as a CEO and consultant and speaker. And he has a great book that we're going to be talking about today too, you guys, called The Revenue Catalyst, Mastering the Art of Sales. Now, just mentioning the word sales, I know some of you guys are like, but all of you, I'm like, don't you dare check out. This is so important, right? Sales in our businesses. So Geoffrey, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here and I'm so excited to have a sales conversation. And I just want to tell you guys too, Geoffrey just did his first TED Talk yesterday. So big congratulations on the TED Talk. So we're going to have to check that out as well. All right, Geoffrey, jumping into the sales conversation. So I'm going to tell you right now, I've had a little pain in my sales organization, as I'm sure many business owners can absolutely relate to. So what are the characteristics that we should be looking for in a salesperson on our teams? And we're going to go into the mindset of sales too, because I do feel like sometimes people hear sales and they automatically go, or there's a little bit of a cringe factor there. And it's not a good thing because the sales is like the driving force behind our businesses. And without sales, we couldn't keep our business doors open. So it's literally like the most important thing that you do in your business. So let's actually start there. I'm going to change my mind on the fly. Let's start with the mindset behind sales. So what do you say to people who are like, sales, yuck? Like, how do you get them out of the yuck, Geoffrey?
Well, look, Jennifer, this was really a big part of the impetus for the book because I had that same apprehension when I was looking at careers. And it's why I went into some of the more traditional work that I did. But in unraveling the reason why there's a stigma around sales, an awful lot of that has to do with the fact that business schools don't give credence or attention to sales. Most are structured. They teach finance, accounting, human resources, and marketing. And sure, there's some aspects of sales in marketing, but it's a very different exercise. And because they don't add a lot of value to sales, there's a stigma that I think haunts the industry, notwithstanding the fact that a lot of CEOs come from a sales background. They're the best revenues generators. The most important things for a business is revenue. Revenue can solve any cost problem, So, and all of this kind of came to fruition in an interview that I had with the president of the former university that I taught at, Alan Shepard. I taught for 5 years at Concordia University in Montreal years ago. And he came to visit me when I was a CEO in London, doing a bit of a tour, saying, how are we doing in preparing students for you to hire for your company? And I said, quite well. However, why is there so little sales education? And he laughed and he said, look, a lot of professors aren't really comfortable teaching things they don't know enough about, which I used in the first page of my book as really the launch pad for why there's such a misunderstanding around sales, why there's a stigma, and why there's such a big tent. There's so many things called sales that are so different from one another, and there are some cringy things out there,
Yeah.
like there are in anything. But the type of sales that I really profess to is a unique one where salespeople are made, not born. It's process driven. It's teachable. Attitude and mindset are at the heart of success in this discipline, and it is a brilliant place to be when you can find that niche. So perhaps I'll just stop there for the moment.
All right. Can you be a really effective salesperson and also authentic, genuine, not schmucky and sleazy? And I ask this because, and I know you've seen it too in the industry, you get really effective people. And I have been through trainings where they are teaching, this is what you do. And it feels so sleazy. Like, I am not going to tell somebody to take money out of their 401k for coaching, because as a coach, I would never coach them to do that. So why would I tell them to do that in a sales call? So I know there are people right now thinking, wait, can you be really good at sales, but also be authentic, genuine, and not sleazy?
100%. The best salespeople don't sell, they have people buy from them because they want to. And it really is a pull effect. And really, smart questioning is the engine and the fuel that creates the transformative process in the minds of prospective customers as to whether they would want to buy or not. We're not saying buy this car or I'll break your head. We're saying, it is a conclusion, and it's mutually agreed, and it's mutually beneficial. Sales done correctly is really the intersection point between negotiation and and there are fundamentals to negotiation that, when done correctly, don't make that a sleazy exercise, and sales is really no different. And just to add one more comment to that question before going back to you, the whole idea that fast talkers, the loudest people, the most boisterous, the backslappers are the best salespeople is a big myth. Some of the quietest people I know are the best salespeople because they really allow ideas to grow in people's minds without intervening unnecessarily, and they also are trustable. People buy from people who they trust. So the whole idea of the stereotypes that we see that give us a bad taste in our mouth, I think, are the exception, not the rule, when it comes to the best sales approaches.
I love it. So if we can actually be really good at sales and still be authentic, good, feel good about ourselves, human beings, what would you say is one of the next biggest blockers that you see that people have towards really embracing sales and feeling good about their sales?
Look, the biggest challenge that people have, and it really ties back to the idea of mindset, is in many ways what we're doing is we're looking into the future and we're saying, how much revenue are we going to create? And that's a pretty daunting question for some people who have been taught and trained to risk manage or to look at what's concrete as opposed to what's predictable. The whole idea behind my book and what I'm trying to talk about is I feel that we should have as much foresight into the future when it comes to predicting sales as we do into the past, looking at patterns, because we have tremendous tools at our disposal, including data, that allows us to forecast what we're going to do. So a KPI plan is really at the heart of giving people the confidence that they can step into sales and make it predictable. And it really gets to the point, Jennifer, where I could be doing a review with a salesperson and I could break down all the KPI measures that we've identified that do give foresight into results, and I can reverse engineer their results by telling them exactly what they need to do in terms of hitting certain milestones to be able to achieve their income goals. So I think taking away that uncertainty through process is a big one. I also think that there's a chasm that people have to cross mentally when it comes to their own courage that is in the way as well. And certainly addressing that, I've never met a great salesperson who hasn't crossed that chasm and all of a sudden felt comfortable with a little bit of uncertainty because of how their mind allows them to operate
Very
eventually.
nice. So would you say who is your book really for? Is it for the person trying to master their sales? Is it for the business owner trying to build a sales team, or a little of both? Who really is your
Hmm.
book for?
Well, I wrote it to fill a big gap, which is fundamentally what all business schools miss, notwithstanding what
Mhm.
people might pay for a 4-year education at a business school. They're not learning a lot about sales. And after doing the interview with Alan Shepard that I mentioned, I I've done many interviews, probably 2,000 interviews of salespeople in my life, and I eventually started asking people, have you taken a sales course? And some said none, some said one. These are business students, and so I realized that there really should be a fifth pillar in business, adding sales as a fundamental discipline. And I wrote this as a former university professor. I wrote this as to fill that gap. And in that sense, it applies to overzealous students who are trying to fill that gap when they're in school, to small business owners who realize that maybe they don't know structurally best practices in sales. And it also applies to managers and leaders in companies. So it really does cover the spectrum because of that lack of education that exists really across the board.
Nice. I love it. Okay, you guys, you hear it. And so the name of the book is The Revenue Catalyst: Mastering the Art of Sales. And if you go to Geoffrey's website, you can see links to actually go ahead and purchase the book, just letting you guys all know, because I know I'm getting really excited about it. And it's, man, I got to go check this out, because you're so right. There is a huge gap there in the education and learning about this and making it something that we can all really embrace and get on board with and be excited about, instead of it having to have a little bit of an ick factor when we talk about the sales. All right. So here's another question. So when we talk about a business and maximizing the business's profitability, what, in your opinion, would be more important, stimulating revenues or controlling costs?
Look, I think that I'm going to be the odd man out because most people will feel that they have a much stronger relationship with their ability to cut costs because those are the tangible things. But with the right processes and the right predictability into the future and sales structures, any cost program, any business problem could be solved with revenue. And I'm not saying there aren't inefficiencies in how companies spend, but most of the time people are automatically gravitating to cutting costs because they feel that that's the only option. In contrast, having a strong plan to be able to find opportunities to grow revenues, how to hire the right people with the right mindsets that you're going to be able to teach. They don't have to be fast talkers or slicksters or people with experience. My formula for finding the right people to work for my company is I wanted people who typically succeed at things that they set out to do and have a positive attitude. And
Hmm.
and with that, I didn't want to inherit people that had failed sales processes. I would teach them the sales myself, but they needed to have the absorbability through their attitude and their desire and their willingness to be malleable. And
Yeah.
then once I could find the right people, then I have a program to develop, the next generation of salespeople and really turn them into sustainable people who you can then they can take on people and teach themselves. And in many ways, the organization that I was a CEO for, well, many years, I was with for 25. That's how this company spread around the world and had 50 offices in dozens of countries, all by transplanting people that had been trained with processes and giving them the power, empowering them to really be able to go out and do the same with other people and growing a global company organically as opposed to having to take it public or use money to grow.
Yeah. And I think it's so important, though, that I love what you're talking about, but making sure that people are trained with the right process. In my own experience, this was several years ago. One of our top salespeople, I mean, she was fantastic. She just closed everything. She was fantastic. I'm like, don't fix a thing. You're doing a great job. And she wanted to improve her skill set. And so she went through a separate outside sales training class
Mm,
course, whatever, and her close rate plummeted.
Oh
And
God.
she kept trying to implement all these just like schmucky things that they were teaching her to do, whereas just her natural ability to get on the call and have a conversation where she was doing so well, it really messed her up. And
Mhm.
she never really fully recovered or got herself back on track, because I think that they confused her with a lot of different things other than just like her own natural ability. And so I just think it's so important that like you have that right training, because then you can replicate it. But there's a lot of programs out there, there's a lot of sales programs out there that don't teach like really good principles, and I'm sure you must see this as well. Of what do you have to say about just what you see out in the industry and what's being taught when it comes to sales?
I talk specifically about this in the book as well, because I had a similar experience where I had done a partnership with a group in the mortgage industry. And really what we did was we took our best salespeople and started putting them on this special program, and their sales plummeted too. And they were, all of a sudden, there was a lot of confusion. They were teaching them things that were contrary to the principles that really gave us the ability to close. And so going back to my comment about sales being a big tent, there are just so many things out there that call themselves sales that are different from one another. It becomes very different for business owners to know what is a good investment, and what is, where there's risk and where there isn't. And under those conditions, the least risk is status quo. You don't do anything.
Yeah.
So I think maybe just to talk about that spectrum for a little bit, and I do write about this in the book. There's, when we're children, we're selling too. We're selling our parents on things, and the only way that we can sell when we're children, given our cognitive abilities, seems to be persuasion. Please,
Hmm.
mom, buy me this, buy me the sugar cereal so we can eat the Fruit Loops together. It's gonna be great. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Or temper tantrum. Like that works
or
too. Like
or
sold. Okay,
or
stop screaming. I'll buy it for you.
yeah, no, 100%. The preemptive, the absolutely. But that tends to be what people leverage for their entire lives, because they become teenagers and it's about convincing their friends. Let's go here, let's go there, let's do this, let's do that, and then they go to business school, don't learn sales, and then maybe they end up in the real world and they're said taught go sell. And
Hmm.
your salespeople person that you mentioned, she had an intuitive way of doing that. Hopefully she could have teach other people how to do it. If she could, that would be the value in her learning a structure that was a little bit more formal, if she could place herself within it so she could teach it. Otherwise she's a non-renewable resource. She can't really
Hmm.
tell people what to do. But on the other side of sales is really where negotiation exists. It's resistance, and it's what universities and banks do when they sell to you. The university says, Jennifer, why should we admit you into our prestigious institution? And they put up resistance, and they make
Uh-huh.
you sell them. It's a reverse sell, and banks are, doing the same thing when it comes to a loan or a mortgage. And
Hmm.
so between those extremes, everything exists in between. And in many ways, we have to be choosing the program that best aligns with our our current systems, or be willing to modify those systems in accordance with the sales structure. Otherwise, there's going to be a conflict, and sales will go down.
Yeah. How can a business owner, and I'm not going to say the names of the programs I've been through, but I've been through probably the top in my industry, in the coaching industry, probably top 3 or 4 programs that are fairly well known in the coaching industry. I'm not going to name drop, but spent a lot of money on them, had a
Mm.
lot of very inauthentic practices being taught. And so how can a business owner like protect themselves or know, hey, this is the kind of sales program that I actually want to learn? Because a lot of these organizations on the front end, I mean, they've got very strong sales practices, right? And they get you in there, they get you sold, and before you know it, you've dropped $10,000, $15,000, and then you're still left with, ugh, I just learned how to
Mm.
do something that I don't really want to do because it feels gross. So
Mm.
what are some practical tips like a business owner can know, like when choosing, if you're going to invest in a program or an organization to help improve your sales, like how, what can they know going in
Mm.
of what to look for?
Look, this is such a common problem, and it was one that I experienced myself for many years. I would not let anyone near my salespeople. We would
Hmm.
have to train them ourselves, because with all my reading of every sales book that I could find, I for many, many years, I didn't find anything that aligned with how we sold, which was really the negotiation side of sales. And then along the way, I found a couple really good authors that positioned things correctly, and that gave the confidence to then go down that track. But part of it is self-awareness. You kind of need to know what is your sales process. In the book, chapter one is is product positioning, because we all want to position our product in the right way, and there's a whole, the many theories around how to do that. But the second chapter is sales, choosing a sales process, and by aligning the two, that all of a sudden becomes your unique proposition when it comes to revenue generation, and aligning everything from then on with that is key. If you contradict it, people are paralyzed, and it really does. It really goes to the lowest common denominator of people really not knowing what to do in any given situation to maximize results. So an environmental scan would be my short answer of everything that's out there, really being able to understand ourselves, and then be able to then choose the ones that best align, unless one is willing to make wholesale changes.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm going to say sleep on it, you guys. Sleep on it. Like sometime, and your salespeople don't want to hear that, at least not the high pressure ones. They don't want to hear that. But the good people, even like for my sales team, I'm like, look, it's a big decision. If they need time to think about it, let them think about it. If we're the right fit, we're going to be the right fit. And so I just am like, any kind of big decision like that, when you're going to make a big investment, and I'm talking, 5 grand, 10 grand, 15 grand, and like partnering with a company to help you improve your sales, like sleep on it. Talk to your coach about it. Really do your due diligence before you make an investment like that, instead of kind of getting carried away in, some of those inauthentic tactics. They can really suck you in. And actually, one of my favorite guys, oh my God, such a good salesperson. I would be afraid not to buy from this guy. He was just so good. But, not always having the best interests of the client in heart. It was more of just, he was just very, very skilled in getting somebody to, whether he shamed them or whatever, to just make a decision right now to get out of that discomfort of not making the decision. So anyway, sorry, I'm probably going on a little tangent here, aren't I, Geoffrey?
Any sales process is going to have a call to action. And, in many ways, my definition of sales is giving people good reasons to buy today. It's not about buying today. It's about motivating them to see the value in buying today. And that's where a lot of salespeople get it wrong, and they leave residue, and it becomes unsustainable. And there's buyer's remorse, and people think backwards and wonder why they made a decision. So look, sales and urgency are, when done incorrectly, they mean pressure. When done correctly, people buy from a desire that comes from within themselves, and that is really the tightrope and the fine line that we want to achieve in achieving sales mastery.
Oh, that was beautifully said. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, Jeff. So tell everybody before we run out of time where they can find you. Where can they go buy this brilliant book that you wrote?
Well, my website, GeoffreyMReid.com with a G, GeoffreyMReid.com, offers links directly to Amazon. It's interesting, when I was doing my TED Talk yesterday, when I was introduced, one of the students said he was a big Kobo guy, and between the rehearsal and the event, he said, I went on Kobo and I found it. So, that's what he does. A lot of people I know in my generation prefer books as opposed to, on their readers. But it really is on every platform. It can be found on Barnes and Noble. It can be found on, it's being picked up by bookstores. So I've been doing some signings, but the easiest way, it tends to be how I buy books now, maybe it's the lazy way, is going to Amazon. And I have a little place, because I have a lot of readers who come from different countries, because I've traveled all around the world. And so you can pretty much go and select your country, your Amazon country, and go to that store, because if there isn't a store, it becomes a little complicated. But it's not that hard to find in brief.
Nice. I love it. Awesome. Jeff, thank you so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate it. I hope that you guys, as you're listening, make sure that you act on something that you heard today, whether it is shifting your mindset around sales, maybe being more intentional when you're getting on your sales calls or in how you're building your sales team. Like, you're not going to get the results if you don't make some kind of a shift, some kind of a change, and do something different based on today's. Or maybe you're going to make the decision to go buy Geoffrey's book and give it a read, because it sounds like there's plenty of amazing advice in there that you can all benefit from. I once had a coach tell me, if you have money that can solve a problem, you don't have a problem. And so when you have strong sales and those revenues are coming in and you've got the money, guess what? There's so many problems in your business that go away when you have the money, because when you have the money to solve it, you don't have any problems. And you're right. Like, I loved it. We really didn't have a lot of time to dive in deep on the cost cutting, but like, even with one of the things we use with a lot of our clients is profit first, and where you're running your business on percentages, and you can only go so far with cost cutting measures. There's a point where you can only cut so much. And at the end of the day, if you're not driving those top line revenues, none of those percentages are really going to work. So I just throwing that last little nugget out there, because it was so true that really at the end of the day, you've got to be driving those strong sales, and that's going to be the game changer in your business.
Indeed. Sometimes you can cut so much that you're cutting future revenues as well. So
yeah, exactly. Love it. All right, you guys, get out there and read the book. Geoffrey, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Jennifer, it's an honor to be on your show. I love it, and I'm excited about the future.
Thank you so much. All right, you guys, that's it. Take some action from today's show and get out there and have a happy, productive day, y'all. Bye.